Sorry, that was maniacal drumming on the table. I'm a little early. That's what he told her, isn't it? Anyway, sorry. I'm just sitting here waiting. Innit? Yeah. Hello. There are viewers. This is always a comforting thing because I have this fear that one day I will sit here all alone and nobody will show up. Buongiorno. Thank you all for being here. That sounded like a, I don't know, this is turning into a religion now or something. Good morning, brothers and sisters. Yes. Yeah, people really want to... He's there. Roger is always there. Don't worry. He always watches. How are we all doing today? There is something I have to show you, but I'm slowly building up to this because it's just waiting for people to slowly stream in. Yeah, and I'm also trying to charge my phone at the same time. There we go. My phone, I can tell you a little bit about that. My phone had this thing where the I don't know what happened exactly, but it's not the newest, latest phone. But when I put the cable in, it doesn't charge anymore. So now I have a wireless charger, which is a strange name because when you think about it, this is still a wire. But anyway, nothing goes into your phone, and it works really well. And you just put it on there, and it's magic, isn't it? It's magic. Yeah. Yeah, magic. Anyway, sorry. Someone says they have a colleague in the hospital. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's unpleasant situation. Let's hope for the best. Minute. Oh, God. Yeah, brothers and sisters of the pen. I suppose that's what it should be, right? This could be. We could have some sort of sermon situation going on here, and it could be. I could be preaching pens, and I suppose condemn the ballpoint users or something. But we all know they go to hell anyway, so it's okay. Like, I mean, that's their issue, isn't it? All right, let me show you something, a thing that I got. Gentleman from Poland. Videos. So I said, absolutely. And he said, I do Urushi work. I said, really? He said, yes. And he sent me this. So this will be reviewed, I think. I have to discuss that with him. But it is a Ranga body. So an Indian pen, ebonite. Large pen. Large. With, I want to say Heki Tamanuri. That's anyway, all the way from Poland. This is what the gentleman from FedEx said when he delivered it. It's coming all the way from Poland. And I was like, yeah, I know that. Because anyway, weird. Was a shocker to him, I think. But anyway, I am very impressed with this pen. Tamanuri Studio on Instagram, for example. Nice, large, and the Urushi work is actually very good, I found. So I really like it. It is definitely big. It's not a pen for people who don't like larger pens. I mean, I'll give you what do I have? It's reasonable size. Here's just a simple, mechanical pencil, and then here's this pen. So it's definitely a very large pen. It does have a number 6 nib. He was, I think, hinting at. I realized that that's a bit small, so I'm thinking that maybe there will be a number 8 nib at some point. But I thought it was quite cool, and it writes pleasantly. Nice writer, cartridge converter filled, although maybe if it's a Ranga pen, you can also use it as an eyedropper, because this is a solid piece of ebonite, so I don't really see why not. There's no metal in it. But I thought it was quite nice. So I thought I would just throw that out there, as the kids say. And for the record, here's another Urushi pen. So to give you an idea, right? That's a Denitrio. So impressive work, I found. 1 second. Sorry, need water. Let's see what we have here. What things does Pelikan improve from its vintage models to now its modern piston filler pens? I don't know if they have changed their pistons very much. This Mont Blanc has, right, the telescoping piston, and now they have, I think, other pistons. I have found the vintage Pelikan nibs to be much more flexible than the modern nibs. The modern nibs have a little bit of bounce to them, but they're not flex nibs. People sometimes think they are, and then they spring them. Don't forget the adage that every nib is a flex nib once. But I mean, that's how it works, right? And with the vintage Pelikan, I don't think that was an issue. I think that was a different story. So I've had a Pelikan 400 NN that had in my mind, a full flex nib. That was a beautiful writer. What else do we have? Do I use TWSBI Eco? I don't use it. I have reviewed it. It's a solid pen, I think. Yeah. What else do we have? Any idea about what the precious resin really is? Yeah, plastic. It's plastic. It's like any other resin, except that people get really offended when you say that. But it's a resin like any other resin. I really do not believe there is anything exceptional about precious resin. But then that's just me. A double barrel opinion question. What do you think of the $717 and the Parker Penman Sapphire ink? Yeah, let me just do this thing here, where I quickly look up the $7 because I have a pen in mind. I just want to see if it's what it is. Yeah, that's what it is, isn't it? $717. Yeah, I've had it. I've reviewed it. Why is it that every morning I do this, some dude decides to mow his lawn in the loudest fashion possible? Probably a ballpoint user. The dollar pen, it's a nice pen. It's a very rigid nib. I can't say I found that the most pleasant nib I have ever used. It's a fun pen. And what's the other one? Parker Penman Sapphire. Yeah, it's a blue. I mean, it's a blue ink, and it's a very pretty blue with a very nice sheen. But there are other blues that are very much like it. For example, Ackerman shocking blue was designed to really replicate Parker Penman Sapphire. So if you really want to have Parker Penman Sapphire, but you don't want to pay $60+ a bottle, then you could always buy the shocking blue from Ackerman, and you would have an ink that is pretty close. It's not identical, it never is, but it is that dark blue with a little bit of red sheen. So I mean, it's a beautiful ink, but yeah, it's a blue ink. Hello. Will the pen in your podcast, pen in your pocket podcast, although pen in your podcast is kind of fun too, come back? Who knows at this point in time? Thoughts on the Mont Blanc calligraphy? Yeah, I've reviewed it. There is a review on my channel. It's I actually believe that Mont Blanc got pretty close to a flex nib. I wonder how it holds up if you flex it over and over and over and over again. But as a modern day flex nib, I really think they genuinely did a good job. So that should be on my channel, index on my website, right? SBREBROWN.com for all my reviews. But it should be there because I reviewed it. What else do we have? The thinnest ebonite pen you've encountered? Yeah. There was a pen, again, I have to now open my own website because I want to say it was a guider, but let me just have a quick look here. There was an Indian pen that was indeed tiny. The Guider Mini, yeah, that's what I had in mind. It is small. It is very small, but you're asking for the thinnest. That's the thinnest. It's maybe this long, but it is tiny. It has a tiny diameter. Barely holds ink too, but like it writes for sure. I sprung my Homo sapiens. Yeah, that's another thing with those palladium nibs. People, this is not meant in a mean way, but people treat them as full flex nibs, and they're just simply not. At least I'm assuming it was a palladium nib. They just aren't. And it's also very strange. Some of them are very rigid, others are very soft, and that gives the impression that you can probably flex it really well. But then, as I said, every nib's a flex nib once. The Conklin, how big is a number 5 nib? Well, the number 5 refers to the diameter of the feed, right? So a 5 millimeter feed, it's therefore smaller than a number 6 nib, because that would be a 6 millimeter feed diameter, and bigger than a number 4 nib. So I actually once did a post on my website size comparing these things, but now I'm just thinking where you can find that, because that wasn't a video. I'm sorry for the typing noise, but I don't want to mute and unmute and mute and unmute. And here, there's a gift, Sunday morning gift for you. Wait, I have to scroll up now. Was this my okay? I'm sorry, because I want to say a name, but I'm going to butcher it. I'll try to see if I can copy that and put that in. Are you Polish by any chance? There you go. Have fun. That has a beautiful drawing by me, but at least it gives you an impression of size. Number 5 versus number 6 nibs. Okay, let's move on. What is the Conklin Omniflex nib to write with? Yeah, the Conklin Omniflex is one of those nibs that I don't necessarily fully get it. It's a modern incarnation of a flex nib. It's basically a nib, right, with these sort of cutouts. It'll give you some line variation, but I've found that the almost invariable issue with those modern flex nibs is that the feeds simply cannot keep up with the ink demand, and then the pen railroads, and you can write one letter or two letters, and then it railroads. And that's again something I think Montblanc with their calligraphy nib did a lot better. But yeah, that's also a way more expensive pen. Will that Conklin Omniflex give you some flex? Absolutely. And there are other options, noodlers and other. Like, I mean, but I wouldn't say one is better than the other, because they all run dry. In my experience, like I've tried a lot, and I want it to work, but every single time it's the same deal. All those pens just starve of ink, and you have to somehow get them to write again. Which is just, I think, that's just the bane of modern flex writing. Like, it's just, if you really want to do flex, you have to get a vintage 14K nib. But if that's not an option for you for whatever reason, financially or no access to it, whatever, I understand. And then the Omniflex, it's a start. It's absolutely a start. Like, that's for sure. All right, what else? Have you ever tried any pen made by the Alpharin White Super Tusk? The short answer is no. The long answer is I will admit I have never even heard of that, so I have to look into this. I'm sorry, I do not have an opinion because I haven't used them. Is a Pelican barrel much more sturdier than a Montblanc barrel? Well, I haven't done the test, but with a hammer we should be able to find out. In both cases, I mean, it's resin, right? So I mean, things can and will break. I mean, I'm not in the habit of like stepping on my pens or something. So I have once destroyed an Edison. That may be a cute story to tell. I once destroyed an Edison pen by stupidly dropping the cap and then in shock stepping back and stepping right on it. I contacted Brian Gray and said, this is the cap, it was shattered. It was shattered. And that's an acrylic, right? I said, could you make me a new cap? And he said, yeah, of course. I said, well, let me know how much it is. He said, no, it's free. I said, no, but I don't want it. Like, I know I review your pens, but I mean, I don't want you to do this for free just because it's me. He said, no, I do this for everyone. You have lifelong warranties in my pens, and I want you to be happy. Now, suck on that. A lot of big companies will give you a year of warranty, right? So, hashtag Edison, hashtag lifelong warranty, hashtag awesome. I was really pleased with it. Do I own a watch? Yes, I do own a watch. I'm not wearing it because in this era and time, time isn't really a thing anymore, right? But yes, I have a Seiko Sportura, which happens to be here, I suddenly realized. So yes, I do have a watch. It has a chronograph on it because I really like chronograph. The tachometer, I never use, never ever. But the chronograph I use, chronometer. I don't know anything about watches. It's the thing that moves. That, I have that and I use that. I'm very serious. I'm very careful not to get into watches because that's a rabbit hole I refuse. I refuse to enter. That's too much. Okay. Yes, Gourmet Pens reviewed it as well. The Omniflex. So you should also check out her review because she's much more apt in using flexi nibs than I do. Some call her a flexi lady. Best fiber tip pens. Can't tell you. I don't have the authorization. No, it's just I never use them, so I wouldn't be able to give you something sensible. What will be my top fountain pens in the $50 to $100 price range? Well, if you can find a reasonable Parker or Waterman, I always like those. Not because they're going to be the most amazing designs and material, although Waterman has done some pretty nice lacquered pens, I find. But they're relatively affordable. And most importantly, they typically write straight out of the box without issues. Is it going to be the most mind-blowing experience in writing you'll ever have? Probably not, but it will be a pleasant experience. Other options. What else have I had? Faber-Castell makes a lot of pens in the very affordable range. I'm thinking of something like the Basic, the Loom. Those are nice pens with very smooth steel nibs that I really enjoy using. Anything else? I mean, you have a host of pens now that, of course, you have a whole bunch of pens from China. Pen BBS makes nice pens, many of which are quite affordable, nice materials, sometimes even fun filling systems, which is kind of interesting that they're working on that. So I think those would be probably my options, depending on what you want. Like if you want a spectacular looker, then a Pen BBS pen can actually be really nice because they even have glow-in-the-dark pens and pens with really fancy finishes. So there are some options there, I would say. What else do we have? What are my thoughts about the Caran d'Ache 849 Plume? Plume. Sorry, I don't know why I said Plume. I'm not sure I have thoughts. I need to look at this again now. Caran d'Ache 849. Let me see if I have, because it doesn't ring any bells. Yes, that one. Yeah. No, never used it. No, I don't know. So I don't know. Sorry. Favorite in-house nib. I have been, sorry, step back a little bit. I have been really quite impressed recently with Santini from Italy. I borrowed 2 Santini pens from friends from Calgary, from the local pen club. And I was really impressed with their nibs. They look nice. They're actually imprinted as opposed to laser engraved, which I do think is bonus points. and they write very nicely. I used their stub amongst other things, and it was a little peculiar because it was not a super wide stub, but it definitely offered line variation. Very nice. And these are reviewed, and I'm pretty sure both reviews are published at this point. So check that out. These are not necessarily $50 pens, but relatively speaking, they're also, I mean, they do some limited editions, which are a bit more expensive, but relatively speaking, they're not super terrible in price, given that they're made in-house, nibs are made in-house. So Santini, I kind of liked. Yeah. What else do we have? Aaron. Hello, Aaron. Nice to see you. Hello. Hello. Have I tried the new Homo sapiens lava with the large crystal window? And is it worth the higher price? I have not used it yet, but word has reached me that Appelboom will be lending me one. So all I can say at this point is keep your eyes peeled. The big advantage of the ink window really is in that model, in my mind, that with the regular lava, you don't have a clue how much ink you have left. There's no way you can assess it except by pulling the plunger, pushing it back in, and squirting ink everywhere. And much fun as it can be to squirt everywhere, the cleaning up is not always fun, is it? So I look forward to trying that out. What else do we have? What else do we have? What is my opinion of Parker's 5th generation? Yeah, I guess that is the fiber tip that I used at some point. It's a fine liner disguised as a fountain pen, right? That even has something that looks like a fake nib. I don't get them. Again, basically a fine liner like a fountain pen. I don't get it. I didn't get it. And it was not a bad writer, but I can't say I found it a stellar writer. So I was not a big fan of these, unfortunately. So there we go. Oh, here's an interesting question. Are all Stoics atheists or inclined to atheism? No, not necessarily. I will try to keep this brief because I don't know if this is of equal interest to everyone, but I find it a very interesting question. So thank you for asking that. No, Stoics actually are confusing because in the Hellenistic or the Roman gods, you know, Zeus and Jupiter and all those guys. But they are very imprecise in their own wording. So sometimes they refer to the logos as something as like a rational system that is the universe. Sometimes they refer to providence, which is a more divine thing. Sometimes they refer to the gods. Marcus Aurelius does all three, and so does Epictetus. So you do not have to be an atheist to be a Stoic. In fact, I think one of the charms of Stoicism is that you can be whatever you like. You can believe in, say, God, and say, God controls my destiny. Or you can not believe in God and say, no, the universe controls my destiny. Which is interesting, right? Because it gives you all those options. So I don't think you have to be an atheist. I don't think you even have to gravitate towards atheism. I think you can be whatever you want and be a Stoic. So that's, I think, interesting. What else do we have? I have a titanium Namisu Nova with a titanium nib. I want to know if KMZ, I think that's KWZ, I know the ink, right? And Hohenklinger Iron Gall would be safe in it. Iron Gall inks are a complicated ink because they have very specific chemical properties, and those chemical properties make them waterproof to the point of being able to survive a Death Star ray, basically. But they can destroy pens. I have used Iron Gall inks. I use the ink from Esri, which is a British supplier. I also used Mont Blanc Midnight Blue, and that was still an Iron Gall ink. It is not anymore. And I've never had issues. But what you do have to do is clean your pen exceptionally well. until it is 100% clean. If you have that Namisu, there's a good chance you can take apart the nib unit and separate the nib and the feed. It's not a bad idea to actually put those in an ultrasonic cleaner then to make sure that it's really, really clean. The particles in iron gall ink can have different sizes, can clog feeds, and sometimes you see pictures online of feeds that are completely sort of molten and gooey after iron gall ink. I've never had that. Sometimes people have issues with especially steel nibs. Just last night, I had a Skype conversation with Dr. Joe Vitolo, that you may know of calligraphy fame. And we were talking about iron gall ink, and he said he would use iron gall ink with steel dip nibs. And he said with just after a few lines, the nib already starts to corrode because of the ink. It's still usable, but it corrodes. So it can be nasty stuff. Again, I've used it in fountain pens that I cleaned very well, and that seemed to work. But you have to do that, though. You can't let that type of ink sit in a pen for 6 months and not use it and expect everything to work out. That is, I think, what I have to say about that. Yes. And isn't agnosticism more rational than atheism? Yeah. It's difficult, right? Because it's difficult to prove the existence of a God. It's also difficult to prove the non-existence of a God. So from that perspective, maybe agnosticism and saying, well, maybe, is more rational than saying, well, there is nothing. This is a matter of absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, I think. Yeah. Okay, Gourmet Pen says, if you really want to do flex, go for dip nibs. Yeah, I think that is an excellent, this is, of course, there's a little bit of a delay in me getting to these things, etc. But I think that's a very sensible suggestion. If you really want to do it, if you really, really, really want to have flex, then maybe go for a dip nib. Yeah. You helped improve my dia handwriting by providing me with great resources. I'd like to say a big thanks. Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. I appreciate it. I try, right? My handwriting is absolutely not perfect, but I can say that I like it a lot better now than I liked it, say, 10 years ago. So with diligent practice, everyday handwriting and calligraphy are different things, but I think you can get to a point where you appreciate your own handwriting a lot more, which I think you should do anyway, because that's one of the points I'm making. One of those videos I did about handwriting, that it's your handwriting, right? And it's if it is legible, then that's good, and it's yours. It's your character. Your personality is in there. That's important. I really think that's important. You have to love it for what it is, but that doesn't mean you can't or should not improve it. Everything is susceptible to improvement. So thank you. I appreciate that. Gourmet Pens has an alpha in Super Task. Super Task or Super Task? Anyway, how do you get all this stuff? How come I don't know about it? Anyway, I have a discussion after this is over. I'm just kidding, but that's interesting. Good. Then maybe at some point I will get to use it too, and then I can tell people what it's like. All right, what else do we have? Except for, that was a really weird noise. Sorry. Except for the Indigo, did you try any other Jean-Pierre Lépine fountain pens? No. What I will say was, what I found very sweet is that I reviewed the Jean-Pierre Lépine Indigo. This is years ago. That was one of the first pens I bought. And Mr. Lépine himself commented on the video to thank me for reviewing his pen, which I thought was really, really nice. So, yeah, cool. Nice brand. I just never really got into exploring it more. They do make one that looks a lot like a sex toy, which has these weird bumps on it. That's really, I don't know if that's really my style, but yeah, it's there. Can you hear this in the background? Question is, should I close the door? I'm getting louder and louder. It's starting to get on my nerves. Anyway, Yes, this is a follow-up to the number 6, number 5 nib question, because the person uses number, well, I probably have a number, I can probably show you here. This is a number 6. You just have to give me a second, because I happen to have my pens here. I just need to figure out what's the number 5. What do I have that's number 5? Do I have something that's number 5? I can show you this and this. And this. Trust me, Rome is there. I know what. I'll be right there. 1 second. Talk amongst yourselves. Because I think I'm back. Stop talking. I think I may. It's the teaching role that comes out sometimes. Sorry. Don't I have a number? Oh, yeah! That's a number 5. Okay. Then, let me show you. Size comparison, side by side, just for you. Number 5 and number 6. This is not going to focus very well. I'll do my best, but I can't even block out my face. Okay. At the top, number 5. At the bottom, number 6. Okay? So there is quite a difference. Then, now bear in mind that number 5 is shoved in quite far. Then there is something I've only seen in one brand, number 7. That is on the old win. That's described as number 7. So that would have a feed diameter of 7 millimeters. And then there is number 8, feed diameter of 8 millimeters. It's really starting to get really difficult to hold all these up, but I'm doing my best. Now you have top to bottom. Again, I know it's not really in focus, but at least it gives you an impression of the size, right? Number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8. And then you sometimes see number 4, but that's clearly even smaller than this, so that becomes very, very tiny. And as we all know, size does not matter, except when it does. All right. What else? It was Poland, wasn't it? Yeah, I thought that. Yes, Aaron, I did hurt his feelings. That was it. There was an inside joke. Don't worry about that. This wasn't about the question I just answered. New respect for Edison. That's the right attitude. Yeah, I really think so. Coming back to that cap that was repaired free of charge. I mean, I'm not getting paid to say this, right? But I do think it's important to point out these things. If you look at the multi-million-dollar companies, right? We know what I'm talking about. The German sellers who make that much money and give you a year of warranty. And then you have a dude who basically started in his basement in Ohio, so to speak. Is it Ohio? I won't say Ohio. You know, Edison Pen Company, who give you a lifelong warranty and replace pen parts for free, even if it was obviously user error. I stepped on the cap. It was not a manufacturing flaw. I stepped on it. I cracked it. I completely shattered multiple parts. I think that is worth pointing out. Okay, what else do we have? The Ebonite feeds by Flexible Nib Factory. Have you experienced the difference between a pen with them and without them? No, I haven't, because I don't think I've used them. But I wonder if Gourmet Pens probably has one, so I can ask her. Excellent content as always. I follow you from Italy, and my compliments again. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I do my best. I also try to keep people a bit entertained here, right? Because we need that in this day and age, I think. Okay. I have a Lamy Joy, but the stub nib does take some getting used to. Just a matter of practice, I guess. En krijgen we een Nederlandstalige video? Ja, dat wordt wel vaker gevraagd, maar klein publiek, dus waarschijnlijk niet. Back to English. Yes, the Lamy stub nib, any stub nib, I think, takes a bit of getting used to. I have found that the Lamy stub nibs sometimes have a little bit of a startup issue, and they won't write straight away. With a stub nib, the angle to which you hold the pen or the nib to the paper really makes a difference. It really does. So yes, it is a bit of a matter of you have to practice a bit with it to really get it to write properly. So it's not you. It is the pen. And you will get used to it, but you just have to practice a lot. Okay. Nice. I dream about my teeth falling out, which coincides with grinding my teeth. Last night, I genuinely dreamed about my Onoto barrel cracking. Concerned about what that means. Maybe it's a prophetic dream. Maybe Onoto is doomed to die. I don't think it is, but you will have to let us know next time if magically cracks appeared, because then we need to investigate these dreams. The Kaweko Dia, I guess, 2. Yes, I have. I thought that was a fun pen. I don't have it, but I did. That was a fun pen to use. So yeah, I know. I like their design. Wish the nib was a little bit bigger for me personally, but nice design and pen. Why do the most expensive pens have a filling mechanism and a gold nib and not a steel nib with a cartridge converter? Well, I think that may be a chicken and egg thing, right? You pay more for the gold. So maybe it is the gold nib that makes the pen a bit more expensive, and maybe it is the exotic filling system that makes the pen a bit more expensive too, right? So I think a lot of companies try to come up with more revolutionary filling systems that maximize ink capacity, etc. A lot of people prefer, rightfully, wrongfully, gold nibs, and so they put that on, and that will add to the cost. So I think that's why they are more expensive. Having said that, you could also have a steel nib with a cartridge converter that is quite expensive, but I don't think the fountain pen community would take particularly well to that. Are the Santini nib sizes typical European widths? I would say, yeah, they were. I would say they were. They were definitely not Japanese in grading. Like they were, the broad was actually a broad, and the stub was a stub. Was not the widest stub in the world, but it was definitely an actual stub. That wasn't your question, but yes, European size, I think. Yeah, the Flexi or Super Flexi nibs from Santini. I'll see what I can do. If they can send me something or lend me something, whatever. What teas are we enjoying as of late? Good question. Right now, I'm having a Nilgiri tea, which is a black tea, a whole leaf, which is delicious. It's really good. You seem to like broader nibs, but you have reviewed both medium and fine 18-karat gold Viscontis. Which do you prefer and why? I don't know if we're talking only about Viscontis, but just assuming that we are. Yeah, I like broad nibs because there's more tipping material, so there is more material to polish, and as a result, you get a smoother writing experience. Now, having said that, you can also have a fine nib with a very smooth writing experience. It's not necessarily the same in my mind. But of course, to use a broad nib, you also have to have somewhat larger handwriting. And recently, I've been using a lot of finer nibs. Sorry. And I've really been enjoying that. What else do we have? Yeah, that's a fair point. Some of the Stoics were Christians until others decided they were heretics. Yeah. It's been an interesting relationship with that. Do I have any wood pens? What is my opinion? Yeah, I own one wooden pen, which is a kit pen, really. My godmother gave me that when I defended my PhD. It is a wooden pen. It's nice. You have to be careful with wood. I'm in a very dry environment, and the wood can crack. So once in a while, I put a bit of mineral oil on it. That's it. And then there is other issues with, like, a wooden section is kind of uncommon because it stains with ink, right? So often you have metal or ebonite sections. I think Ryan Krusek does ebonite sections, for example. I mean, it's nice. I mean, it would depend on the pen, of course, what I really think. Often it's nice. I mean, wood, I like wood as a material because it's it's a nice natural material. I tend to gravitate more towards other materials than pens, to be honest, because I'm always worried about ink stains. And again, there is definitely some upkeep. There is some upkeep you have to do, especially in drier climes. What is the closest to vintage flex in a modern pen? I think we have talked about that earlier today, but you may have missed it. That's fine. The Mont Blanc calligraphy nib, I think, is very close, but you said I've been looking through a lot of FPR. So the Fountain Pen Revolution, yeah, that's a whole different price class. There are very nice flex nibs there, but you're not going to get a $10, $15 pen that's going to write like a vintage flex nib. That's an illusion. I'm just being honest here, but I mean, it's never going to happen. So you will get some flex. It'll be fun. It's probably going to railroad at some point. And it's just the nature of those modern flex nibs. You also don't necessarily get the wet noodle line variation that goes from extra fine to triple broad. Yeah, I'm yet to see a modern pen that can do that and keep up with the ink demand. Good morning, Queen Cats. I always feel like calling you out personally. I don't know why. Sorry. Iron gall inks are a complicated profession. Yes, I couldn't agree more. I think we should do a series on this. Like the iron gall inks are a complicated profession. We should just do a whole bunch of these. Gold nibs are a complicated profession. You know what's really sad? When someone laughs at their own jokes. Anyway, have you ever considered the Fisher Space pen Infinium? I have not had a Fisher Space pen. I had a Chinese, basically knockoff that was a fountain pen with a little hooded nib, with a really weird little thing. I called it the Pocket Rocket, and that was a cute pen, but that's not the brand. I'll probably have to look into one at some point, just for the fun of it. Anyway, Aaron says he's just gone to oolongs. Yes, I have an oolong on the way, so I shall report back in ways of oolong tea. Wait, I overscrolled. Okay, scrolling is really difficult here. Okay. What are the best reasonable blue inks according to you? Well, reasonable, huh? You can have a very good conversation with Waterman Blue. I think Waterman used to be Florida Blue, so I call it TIFCAF, the ink formerly known as Florida, right? But now it's Serenity Blue. I really think that's a very good blue. It flows well. It's nice and wet. It's not. It responds really well on all kinds of papers. It cleans out easily. Of the blues, washable blues, reasonable blues, that is probably my favorite. Yeah. I made my own ink out of saffron. It's a very nice gold color. I'd use it in an expensive pen, but it's amazing. It sounds fascinating. That could potentially be the world's most expensive ink when you think about it. Hello, Sima. Nice to see you. Apologies to people wearing headphones. I'm sorry, I shouldn't do that. Love SBREBROWN ink. How did you choose a shade and what were you looking for in it? Yeah, let me elaborate a little bit on that. Here's basically the process. So I went to Diamine because I wanted a well-known ink brand to make the ink, because I don't want to be in a position where someone comes up to me and says, your ink destroyed my pen, right? I have never had issues with Diamine inks personally. I've used a lot of them. They've been in business for over 150 years, so I assume that means they know what they're doing. So I contacted them, sent them an email at some point. I said, hey, I don't know if you ever do this weird idea, but I was thinking of launching a custom ink. And a day later, I got an email from the managing director who said, yeah, call me tomorrow, which was surprising. I really thought I would not get a response. Not because I had any reason to believe that, but I thought that they would not do this, especially for one private person. I had a wonderful phone conversation with Christine, the director. I think, I don't know what her official title is. I want to say managing director, but something like that. Lovely conversation. She said, no, we do this. We have one person who has his own line of green. He doesn't sell it. He just wants a specific shade of green, and we made that for him. So the process in a nutshell is you send them a Pantone color, which is just like a standard color system. And you say, I want something close to this. And then they say, what properties do you want? Shimmer in it? No, I don't want shimmer in it. What do you look for? Well, I said, well, I would really like something that shades, because I really like that. And maybe a bit wet, if possible, but that also depends on the dyes they use. So I sent them the Pantone color, and a couple of weeks later, I got a little bottle in the mail with a sample, and then you can give feedback. So you can say, I want a bit more orange, or I want a bit less this. But I loved it. Straight away, I loved it. I thought it was a great color. I know that Aziza got a number of samples. She got a couple of options that she had to pick from. I only had one, but I loved it. Again, like from the start, I love that ink. So that is that's kind of how that went. And what I was looking for was a warm shade of brown with good shading properties. And that's pretty much it. So that's how that came to be. And I'm glad you like it. I mean, I like it, but I mean, obviously I'm biased. But I really like it as an ink. I always have it in one pen because I really find it a pleasant ink to use and a very nice color. All right, what else do we have? Someone says we can't hear the noise. Okay, excellent. That's good. It's died down a little bit now, but it was quite loud here. But I was hoping the microphone wouldn't pick it up. Okay, is there really much difference between the Platinum 3776 older and newer version? It mentions improved feed. I haven't tried the improved feed, so I can't say. What I will say is that in my mind, there was nothing wrong with the old feed. I have used the old 3776s, including with the 3-tine music nib, which has a reasonable ink demand because it is a stubby nib. I have never, ever had a 3776 run dry in my recollection, so I don't know what needed to be improved. So I can't really answer the question. I can't say if it's better. Like this sounds to me like sort of like a brilliant solution to a non-existent problem, right? I mean, the old feed worked fine, but sure, make a new feed. Why not? All right. And what else? Just show us the whole case, please. Oh, this was the pen case. Well, yeah, sure. But there isn't much in this. This I keep my interesting pens in that I don't use on an everyday basis. So here we have, I always forget the number of this. This is a Wing Sung. This is a Wing Sung. It's a big one, but it's, I like the size, but the feed has starvation issues. So I've never really been able to fix that. And there's also this looks like a Pilot Custom 74, but it's a Chinese knockoff, which I was sent. It's kind of interesting because it even has the vacuumatic filling system, and it's actually a nice writer. I wish I could say that it's terrible, but it's not. Here we have an Uli pen. It was gift from student. What else do we have? Here's the rest. So I already took out some stuff, but I'll put this back in. Now it's not organized. Here are pens. If I need to take something out, you need to tell me. There's only a 10-minute delay or something, but I'll see it at some point. And here's some more pens. That's it. Well, I mean, it's not it. There's a few more here and there, but that's really the bulk of it. All right. Have you ever seen Sam the cooking guy? He has a cooking program in his backyard, and the neighbor starts cutting his lawn, etc. Lots of noise. Oh, that's interesting. No, I have not, but I should check that out because then I can commiserate. What else do we have? What else do we have? The favorite in-house made nib, I answer that. Yeah, the Montblanc Starwalker. I think that's a good example. That's a cartridge converter filled pen that's more expensive. So you can also have more expensive pens with a cartridge converter. Oh, someone does hear the noise. Oh, interesting. Well, I think the noise is gone now. So I just want to say I really appreciate all you do. Thank you. I appreciate it. What I know about making ink. Well, making ink is not that easy, because ink has a number of components in it that people do not necessarily think about. So ink is not just colored water. Imagine that you would have some sort of dye powder, and you, at least this is how I understand these things. You have a dye powder, you put it in ink. You have a dye powder, you put it in water, mix it up, you put it in a pen, you write with it. Theoretically, once the water evaporates, you could be left with dye that hasn't actually stuck to the paper, and you can just blow it off the paper. So there's often, as I understand it, also an agent to make sure that your dye actually binds to the paper, right? But then there's also often an antifungal agent in ink, because it is a liquid and you keep putting pens and nibs and stuff in your ink. So often there's an antifungal agent to make sure you don't get fungi in your ink. That's all I know. It's possible I'm not even correct there. I don't want to say I'm making this up as I go, but that's what I remember from looking into inks at some point. What is your general liking for a fountain pen? Cost-effective and efficient, or expensive pens? Both. One doesn't preclude the other. It does. In my liking, I have both. I have pens that are not very expensive, but they're fun to use. I do have pens that are very expensive, but that are also fun to use. It depends. It's to stick with our Ronin analogy. It's a tool, and you adjust the tool to the job, right? There are situations where I want to have a very nice and somewhat fancy pen. Also situations where I want to have a pen that doesn't really stand out, is not super salient, but that's just there, right? As long as they write. I think that's most important to me. I just reviewed 2 Ryan Krusek wood pens. Yeah, that is correct, gourmet pens. So if you want more information on wood pens, have a look at her channel. Hello there. I wonder, how would you wash your hands after getting ink all over your fingertips? Anything magical besides soap? Yeah, there are products. Ink Nix is one, and at some point I had something called SBREBROWN, which was a very strange name. It's probably an abbreviation for something. REDURAN. Bought that from Mike Masayama, the DC Pen Show. Really interesting. Those are products that sort of that SBREBROWN at least was a type of scrub that you would use, and it would indeed get your hands completely clean. I personally don't mind a little bit of ink on my fingers so much, but I do understand there are situations where that may be inappropriate or not pleasant. You can consider something like that. So Ink Nix is another one. And there is another one, and I just can't come up with the name right now. But those are products specifically designed to remove ink from your hands. It does exist. Rubbing alcohol can also help, which at this point in time is probably not a bad idea anyway. All right. Yeah, soap with pumice. Yeah, that's a good suggestion too. Yeah. Okay. What else? I'm going to try and slowly scroll so that I don't lose track of where I was. See if I can do it. I can do it. La Couronne du Comte is having a 20% Crown Day sale. What pen in the 500, 700 range should I buy? Well, there's a lot to choose from. Yeah, I don't know. There's too many options. I have enjoyed for their nibs the Caran d'Ache pens. And I know that La Couronne du Comte has those. Those are kind of fun. Okay. Hello from Romania. Hello back to Romania from Alberta. That's not a country. From Canada. What else do we have? I'm looking to buy my first pen with a number 8 nib. Any affordable options? No. No, not that I know of. Not a lot. It's a very big nib, but it's also a gold nib, right? Because I'm not sure Bock makes their number 8 nibs in steel, and the gold nib alone costs quite a lot. There are titanium number 8 nibs, which are a bit more affordable, but there's not going to be a $15 pen with a number 8 nib that I am aware of. One thing you could do, just looking, this is not for everyone. This is a pen made out of micarta, which actually happens to look a tiny bit from a distance like Arco, celluloid. This is made by a gentleman called Pen Prique, P-E-N as in pen, and then Prique, P-R-I-Q-U-E on Instagram. He makes pens, and he made me this with 2 sections, one for a number 8 Jovo, and one with a section for a number 8 Bock nib. And I honestly don't remember what I paid for it. I think because I was going to review them, I think I paid him for the nibs. Now, bear in mind, those alone are something like $200, right? That's if not more. They're not cheap, but I wanted to have those nibs anyway. But the pens are not super expensive, right? Because this is one gentleman who makes pens as a hobby. But again, the looks are not for everyone. I'm very aware of that. It is a bigger pen. I find it quite comfortable. That may be an option, but yeah, they will be more expensive. I feel that's just the way it is. Oh, nice. There was saffron being thrown out because of the bugs. That's how we got to the ink. Now it makes sense. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Is there a decent for modern flex nib, less expensive than the Mont Blanc, but above the bottom shelf of the fountain pen revolution? Yeah. I mean, you have those. I think it's Jovo, the nibs with those sort of semicircular cutouts. Edison pens, for example, uses them. Those are gold nibs, though. So again, the price goes up because I think that's like $150 for just the nib. The simple truth is, you're not going to get, like, I feel like I'm emphasizing this a lot, but like you are not going to get vintage flex in a modern pen. You are not going to get vintage flex in a modern pen. It's just not going to happen. So we can all keep trying, but we're not finding it, right? It's not there because it doesn't exist. So there always are issues with running dry, with railroading, always be an issue. And make no mistake, I have once bought a Waterman 52.5 V. It's a smaller, just black rubber, was a little faded on eBay with a vintage 14K flex nib. That was a beautiful flex nib, and I paid $20. So it's possible to find vintage flex, not in fancy hard rubber, mottled ebonite, these kinds of things. But you can find an affordable user pen that's not a great looker, but that writes really nicely and it gives you vintage flex. It doesn't have to be a multi-hundreds of dollars endeavor, right? Okay. Yeah, send me a picture later of this saffron ink because I do find this quite fascinating. What else do we have? Hello from South Africa. Hello back. Okay, yeah, thank you for the input. So for the person asking about cleaning ink stains from the hands, there is something called the Scrubby Natural Soap Infused Scrubber. I have not personally used it, but I've heard it works well. Thank you for the contribution. Yeah, thanks. Yes. Looks like the Wingsung 590. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. The 590. Again, a big pen, and I actually kind of like it. You can completely disassemble it. It's really neat. It has that sort of, pneumatic system. That's not what it's called. Vacuumatic. No, this has a name. Aerometric. Sorry. And I like it, but it's again, it just stars of ink, which is a shame. So we're going to have to try and figure out something with that because it's an inexpensive pen. It's kind of fun to use. Do I like maths? I do not like maths. I teach statistics, which involves math, obviously, and I definitely don't hate it. Yeah. What else do we have? Extra fine, fine, very wet, smooth nib search. What suggestion? Not fine or extra fine, right? Because there is not a lot of tipping material and it's very fine. So it's very unlikely to be incredibly wet and very smooth and extra fine at the same time. I mean, there are good fine nibs. I have a fine on an Omas Paragon that is a very pleasant user, that is very smooth and that is quite wet. But you make sacrifices, right? This is a matter of you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's if you want extra fine, you can get an extra fine, but it's not necessarily going to be the wettest, smoothest writer in the world because it is an extra fine. That's part of the properties of that specific nib. If that would be super wet, then it wouldn't write like an extra fine anymore. It would write like a broad, right? And because it's extra fine, there isn't much tipping material, there isn't much to polish, so you're always going to get a certain level of feedback that people may or may not really like. So that would be my input on that. What do you think of the trend of manufacturers offering only one single gold semi-flex nib in order to make up for a lack of options? Yeah, I don't like it. I know I'm under Simone Club. I'm assuming you're talking about, and there may be others, but I personally, I actually like that Magic Flex nib, but I wish there were other options. I would love to have just a stub or just a broad nib on that pen. I see what you mean, and I agree. I would also prefer to have more options than have just one sort of one size fits all, but it doesn't really fit all. So that's why I would like to see more options too. Yeah. What is your opinion on the new Platinum Curadas? I haven't used it. It looks interesting, but I haven't tried it yet. I should have one on the way, but I haven't tried yet, so I cannot yet speak to it. Is it normal to be able to rub off the gold plating on my Himalaya with my fingers? I would say no. Is my first impression, because it's supposed to obviously not come off. I have seen things happen, not with Fountain Pen Revolution, but I have seen things happen with gold plating of inexpensive nibs rubbing off at some point. You're also dealing with an inexpensive pen, right? Like it's not a $500, $1,500 pen. And you may find these kinds of things to happen. What are you currently reading, please? I am reading. I'm thinking of the title. Pale Blue Dot by Carl Sagan. It's good. I'm enjoying it. I'm also rereading the Enchiridion from Epictetus. Okay, what else? The Edison fine nib is very wet. Well, good. That's a good option. Thank you for contributing that. So then we have that. We have an Edison fine. Okay. Thank you for the great content. Yeah, you're very, very welcome. Do you know of any pens constructed out of carbon fiber? Yeah, there is the Venustas pens. Probably others too. There are pens with partial carbon fiber. Visconti had the Carbon Dream. It was not a cheap pen, but those that I had one. It was nice. A nice pen. Yeah, have I read? I never know how to pronounce her name. And Rand. No, I haven't, but it's on the list. It's on the list. Yeah. Yeah. No, I appreciate this input from Samuel. I have a Curadas and I have opinions on it. It's all right. It's comfortable. The guts of it feel sturdy. Everything else about it feels cheap. Yeah, again, I'm holding off with opinions until I've actually held one. But looking at the pictures, it looks very plasticky to me, and I'm wondering how that feels. And this, what Samuel says, that's kind of the feeling I get from looking at it. But again, I don't want to be unfair and say that before I've actually held it, which Samuel has held it. So it's interesting that is that's an opinion. I have the feeling my opinion is going to reflect that. But again, I don't want to form it. before I actually have that data. What else do we have? What else do we have? What else do we have? Sorry, I'm just reading through comments, but there was more comments on the Curidas, etc. So that all looks good. Do I still have the Mont Blanc 149 oblique triple broad? And if so, what do you usually use it for? Yes, Aziza has it. She uses it to write with. But again, this is something like big nib, right? Big nib, so big, large writing. Yeah, Jordan Peterson is also on the list. Yeah. A review on the Parker Sonnet. I have reviewed a sonnet. I'm pretty sure. Longtemps. It's been a while, but pretty sure I reviewed a sonnet. I also reviewed a Chinese knockoff of a sonnet, by the way. What else? The Caridas. There's a possibility of losing the spring and the knob on the bottle of the grip. Interesting. Yeah. Oh, that's an interesting idea. Speaking of fine nibs and tipping, Mike Masayama took a vintage Pelican broad and without removing too much tipping, fashioned a fine tip on the bottom face. Yeah, sometimes you have these sort of nibs you can turn over from Nibmeisters. That's an interesting option if you want something fine, but also something that's not so fine. Interesting. Check out the feed on the Curidas. Many reports of the nibs cracking even straight out of the box. Damn Curidas. We'll see. Yeah, again, I should be. So I'm just moving a little bit. I should be having a Curidas on the way. I mean, I have one at some point. I will be honest. The retractable nib fountain pens are not really my thing because I don't really have a use for them. I mean, I have tried the Vanishing Point, of course, the Decimo. I'm not undecided on that one. I've tried someone's someone's vintage Vanishing Point with the facets, which was in my mind superior to the newer ones. I found it more comfortable to hold. Tried the Dialogue 3. It's nice, that retractable system, but it has no added value to me from a cap that slips off or screws off or whatever. So but that's probably my profession where I don't need that. And there are other people who are in jobs where they do need that, where it's very useful to have, and I fully understand that. But again, personally, to me, it doesn't offer much. Okay. Oh, the new model of the Parker Sonnet. Yeah, okay. I'll see what I can do. Brands like Santini are selling 14 karat number 6 nibs on. This is a good question. They're selling 14 karat number 6 nibs on piston fillers for prices the Japanese brands sell their prices for. Do you think we'll see the fountain pen leave its perch as a luxury and become a tool pen again? A tool again. It's very interesting. So I mentioned that earlier, but for people who tune in later, last night I was Skyping with Dr. Joe Vitolo, I like to say the calligrapher because that's what he's mainly known for. When we were talking about this too, what I find a little worrisome is that you see more and more brands who keep driving up the prices more and more and more and more. And at some point, I had a brief conversation with Peter Leywine of Leywines in Toronto. That's a fancy fountain pen store in a very nice area of Toronto. And he said things have changed so much. 10 years ago, we were like $1,000 for a pen. That's a lot. But now people walk in and they just drop it. $1,000 for a pen has become a normal thing. But now $2,000 is becoming normal for a pen, right? Look at many new pens coming out, especially Arco pens, $2,000. Look at other collector's pens that are $2,000, $3,000 from a lot of different brands. I find that worrisome because a fountain pen primarily is meant to be a tool to write with. And yes, I also have a couple of expensive pens. I will not deny that. But at some point, and this is the not argument, the discussion Joe and I were having. At some point, it's not fun anymore, but it's also not reasonable anymore. It's not fun that you see a pen, you think, oh, that looks really cool, I want to buy that, and you try to check out, and it's $3,400 US. Like, I mean, it's ridiculous, and it's getting ridiculous, and I do object to that. Not that I have much to say about this. But then if you look at companies like Leonardo, I have a soft spot for Leonardo. I'll be honest about it. A weak spot. What's the expression? I like Leonardo. But why? Well, the reason for that is that Leonardo, in my mind, makes nice pens. And not just that, they're affordable too. I'll show you one. I'll show you two. Here's one that I love. This is probably not the best show off of this camera because I don't know why you can see the material. I think I can't put it in too close. But look at this material. And this is what, like $150 or something. And it's an everyday writer. Yeah, it has a steel nib, but it has a very nice steel nib. This one's a little more expensive because it has the gold nib on it. But look at this. That's a beautiful material. And that's a Leonardo. It's also like the base model with a steel nib is not that expensive. You talk, I think, $150, $160. Well, that's not cheap, but compared to $2,000, that's hella cheap, as the kids say, right? And that, I think, I would like to see more companies do that. Instead of pushing harder and harder and harder and harder and putting prices up more and more and more and more, why not make an affordable pen that people can actually buy and use? That's why I like Leonardo, because they do that. I take another one, like the Messenger. This is an affordable pen, and it's simple. It's simple, and guess what? It writes out of the box, no issues. You know? Okay. Enough bitching. That was a really good question. I really enjoyed that because I do actually have an opinion on that. Hopefully Gourmet Pens and I are doing okay. Yes, we are. How do you keep yourself occupied besides working from home? Well, yeah, work from home is one thing. I mean, of course, I won't speak for Aziza, but there are things to do, videos to record, etc. I am reading a lot, which I enjoy, because if you can't necessarily go out, then you can always be at home and you can read. So I'm catching up on a bunch of things I wanted to read, which is a lot of fun. Those kinds of things. And I like to cook. So, I mean, I like to spend a bit of time and trying to cook things that I haven't cooked before. I haven't cooked in a while. It'll take a bit more time because I have time anyway. Like, there's not even a commute from work, right? So if I stop working at 5 p.m., then at 5:01, I could be cooking, so to speak. So that's really nice. So I'm doing those kinds of things. Okay, scroll up a little bit. I missed something just there. It would be amusing if you released a line of ink. Yeah, I have the feeling this is coming up every week. Unlikely to happen. Unlikely. At least for now, it's probably going to be SBREBROWN only. And just to reiterate why, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, Ackerman is selling them, and it's a tremendous amount of work for Ackerman because a lot of people, it's primarily a brick and mortar shop, but people are ordering the ink online. And Ackerman is very gracious. It's fantastic that they're doing this, but I mean, they have to ship this, and they have sent me pictures of carts full of boxes of ink that people have bought for international shipping, which they have to do on top of their normal work. So if I add a blue and a purple and a green and a yellow and an orange, and it's going to be too much. So I don't think they would do it. And I would think they would be completely justified in doing that. And this is something I mentioned last week too. Also bear in mind that the inks are not free, right? Like, I have to purchase this, and that there is cost involved. I'm not a company, right? I'm just a private person. So to advance a lot of money every time and then have to wait for half a year to get that investment returned, that's not something I can do for 10 or 15 different inks. It's that simple. This was not meant as a mean response to something, but it's very simply, it's very unlikely to happen. So there's SBREBROWN, and that's really probably everything there's ever going to be. All right. Good. I like fixing lives. What else? How to know the Parker Sonnet is original or a knockoff? If the price is too good to be true, it's a knockoff. Because it's a gold nib pen, so you will pay for that, right? Have I used Sailor Zoom nib? Yes, I've reviewed it too. Reviews are on my channel. I think it's a nice nib. It's not for everyone in everyday writing because it's definitely a very broad nib. But the line variation is fun, and they are, in my mind, fun nibs. But again, you can see it on my channel. You can see it in action, and then you can decide if it's something that's worth it for you. Yeah, someone else is singing the praises of Leonardo. I agree. How's the lockdown going? Yes. Well, yeah, no, I'm keeping my sanity, I think, for as far as I had it. No, I think it is, socially speaking, time for people to get back together and start doing things. From a health perspective, I don't know if we're there yet. In fact, I think we're not there yet. But yeah, it's not doable for people to be isolated for long periods of time. Not everyone handles that very well. Again, I do think that was the best decision, but yeah. All right. What else do we have? Do I have any dip nib recommendations for starters? I am very hesitant to answer that for the simple reason that I'm not a dip nib user, really. I even if I do calligraphy, occasionally I use pilot parallels. The superior result will be with a dip nib. I have used Brause nibs, Brause, in the past, with Brause dip nib holders. These are not professional dip nibs at all. They're just nice dip nibs, relatively affordable, and that I really liked. But if you get into real pointed pen work, then there are all kinds of, this is a good brand and this is not a good brand, and like with fountain pens, people are very opinionated. But I'm not one of those people because I don't do pointed pen work, and I am unqualified to speak to this. So that was my very short answer. If you just want to have some fun, you want to try it out, you want to see what it's like, Brause even makes sets that you can buy. It's the same company as Jacques Herbin. That's a good place to start. And then you can see if you like it, and then you can move on to other things. What have I been cooking up as of late? Yesterday, I made chicken satay with a peanut satay sauce. Now, when I say peanut satay sauce, I still want to do the whole thing properly with actual peanuts, but I didn't have actual peanuts, so I used a couple of cashews and I used peanut butter. And guess what? Worked pretty well. Not perfect. What I do, I put in some coconut milk, I put in some peanut butter, I put in some cashews, I put in some sriracha because I like the little bit of zing to it. Very basic peanut sauce. Culinarily speaking, not refined, but it was good. Okay. Yeah, Birmingham Pen Company, that's a good option too if you're looking for a somewhat more affordable pen. That's a good point. What else? What dry inks do you recommend for really wet nibs? Gerbin Lit de Thé is a very nice ink, but that's quite dry. That is the first one that comes to mind. I have to think about more, but that's a good place to start. And it's a very nice brown. I really like that color, but it is very dry. Any modern Parker you would recommend? Yeah, I'm not a massive fan of the modern Parkers. This is simply because of my personal opinion, how they look. They're just not my favorites in look. But I will say they typically are very robust pens. Not sure I really like the modern dual fold a whole lot in looks. I think I preferred the old model, but that's just me. I don't know, because I think I used the new IM at some point. I'm not even sure of that. That's a pretty decent writer. I found it was quite nice. All right. Yeah, I feel like sharing your butter chicken recipe. Yeah. What I put in. Here's what I did. I like to use canned tomatoes. There's arguments why they're actually fresher than fresh tomatoes because they're canned straight when they're fresh and then they're preserved when they go to the supermarket as opposed to tomatoes that are actual. Anyway, do what you think is best. I like canned tomatoes. I take canned tomatoes. I boil them. I add sometimes a little bit of stock, the chicken stock or a little bit of veal stock, just to add flavor a little bit. This is veal stock, obviously not a thing, but chicken stock could work. I'm not saying that this is an authentic butter chicken recipe, but this is what I did based on stuff I read online. So what I put in, I have the tomatoes. I like to put in some carrots for the sweetness, natural sweetness. But I also put in a little bit of sugar. I didn't used to do it, but I did it last time because otherwise you get you really get the acidity of the tomatoes, and it can be a bit too sour when you eat it. So I don't really like to put sugar in food. I still don't really like it, but in this case I did. So the tomatoes, canned tomatoes, some carrots. I actually do it in the same pan. I first sort of sear the chicken, take it out. Onion, put it in, glaze the onion, then put in the tomatoes, carrots. I didn't put anything else there. A bit of garlic. It's unavoidable, garlic. And I think that's what I put in that. Oh, and a little bit of a spice mix. Now, you're supposed to use a type of pepper. And for some reason, I want to say Bengal pepper, but I'm not sure if it was really Bengal. Anyway, I didn't have that. I used a bit of paprika powder, which also makes things nice and red. Not exactly how it should be, but again, I'm also working with what I have and what I have access to here. I like to use a couple of sun-dried tomatoes. You can also use tomato paste to give it a bit more kick. When that is boiled and the tomatoes are nice and soft, I use this stick blender, immersion blender, to really blend it, but you have to blend it really, really well because it has to be super, super smooth, right, and silky. Then I strain that. We're almost at the end of this, don't worry. Then I strain that through a sift, strain it, push it through the spoon, so you get this really smooth, velvety sauce. Put that back on the flame. And then, strictly speaking, now this is almost a French thing, right? Monté au beurre. Now you add butter because it is butter chicken. You can add a lot of butter. I didn't add that much because I don't want to put a whole brick of butter in, but it should be butter. The butter melts. No, don't boil, like simmer at this point. And then you can put in the chicken and a bit of fenugreek. That should go in as well. And I probably added some more spices because I also think I added a bit of coriander seed because I really like coriander seed. That was it in a nutshell. I hope that was doable. It's hard to say this, and it was also not the most structured recollection. But there we go. It was delicious. It was delicious with chicken. It was also delicious in pasta. Okay. How am I doing? I'm doing okay. I'm doing well. In a blind test, could you tell the difference between a gold nib and a steel nib? Not necessarily. I've used steel nibs, for example, Faber-Castell Emotion. Superb. But don't forget, it's not the gold that touches the paper, right? It's the tipping material. So what you can feel is that the gold nibs are a little bouncier, not flexy, a little bouncier. But I've also used gold nibs that are rigid. Platinum 3776 music nib. There is no line variation if you push down. There is not. It is a rock hard nib. So some gold nibs are very rigid. Some steel nibs are very flexy. So I honestly, I don't think most people, including pen experts, and I'm not counting myself amongst them, I don't think most people would be able to tell the difference between a gold nib and a steel nib. Unless you go to a super high-end nib and a super cheap nib, maybe you would start to feel things like, well, this is cheap because it's not polished properly, therefore more likely to be steel. But if you're talking about a reasonable price range, I don't think a lot of people would be able to necessarily feel it. We should do that experiment once. We'll blindfold Gourmet pens and we'll see what happens. Now, what is your say in the Hunt 101 nib? Haven't used it. Can't speak to it. Do you wish you had more time to write with pens? Often you have to use a computer at work or whatever. But at work, for example, can colleagues accept handwritten work? Yeah, it really depends. I don't really think I submit a lot of stuff to colleagues that is handwritten. But I do find myself using pens. Like, I would honestly say, even in a work context, there's, like, for me, not a day goes by without me handwriting something as a quick note or whatever. But I do actually really use my pens, and I do go through ink and such. So I don't necessarily need more time in my mind to use my pens. I'm quite happy with what I do. Yeah. Oh, what I have. You said in your Esterbrook review that brand revivals like theirs give you pause as there is incongruity between the vintage Esterbrook's and the modern ones. What is one brand you say is doing it well? And then, of course, Esterbrook does have, I'm completely blanking on the model name right now, but they do have a model that is closer to the originals, right? But with that ST, yeah, it's in my mind a nice pen, but it's an acrylic pen, which doesn't look like any Esterbrook that I've ever seen. Is there a brand that's doing it well? Well, yeah, I think Scribo is doing a pretty good job. Scribo, founded by ex-employees of Omas, as I understand, they have the machine to make the nibs and the feeds, because the nibs and feeds look exactly like Omas nibs and feeds. I do have, I don't know if this is the best example. Here's a Scribo. Yeah, I probably can't see it very well, but Scribo, nib, and feed, and then here you have an Omas. This is a slightly more modern one, but in any case, the feeds are definitely, I would say, identical for all intents and purposes, and the nibs are very, very similar as well, especially the nibs, I think, to the slightly older Omases. But note that they didn't call their company Omas, and I realize there are probably legal reasons not to, but they're making new pens, faceted like Omas, nice shapes, same nib or nib style, same feed style. I think that's really nice. I have a little bit of issue sometimes with like, this is the legacy of Omas, etc. Yeah, but it's not Omas anymore. And that's why I like that they gave it a different name. And again, I realize there are probably legal reasons they can't call it Omas. I just like that. And I think that's a very good way to do that in a modern setting. What else do we have? Yeah, oh, that's a good suggestion. Pelican inks in general are rather dry. That is correct. They are on the dryish side. The purple is very nice, and the turquoise is very nice, but they are quite dry. I'm not talking about the Edelstein, but the actual, like the 4001, I think, the smaller bottles. Okay. Eyedropper Platinum Preppy, favorite ink. I don't know if I have a favorite ink for Platinum Preppy in particular, but I like, if it's a clear pen, you can see the ink on the inside, I like to use clear inks. For example, Diamine, I want to say Sunshine Yellow. It's a transparent ink. And I think that's cool, because you can not just see through the pen, you can also see through the ink. This may be a weird idiosyncrasy that I have, but I just like it. Butter turkey is a great way to use up Christmas leftovers. That is a fantastic idea. Yeah, that's pretty good. Have you ever cooked with Greek yogurt? No, I have not, for the simple reason I don't like yogurt. But that's just me. Thank you for the Gourmet Pens ink video. Is there a place in the UK where I can buy your ink and Gourmet Pens ink? Not that I know of. But Akamon ships internationally. I mean, you have to, I mean, I think that the shipping within Europe is not terrible, but not within the UK that I know of. No. Authentic Indian butter chicken is undeniably the best. It's hard to argue with that. And again, my version was kind of a hybrid recipe with a bit of fantasy. Recommendations for authentic Indian cookbooks are welcome. So, for example, like in the French cuisine, you have Escoffier, and Escoffier wrote down all the recipes, and that's what it's like, and that's how you make peach melba. You cannot deviate from a micrometer. If there is something like that in the Indian cuisine, obviously I would need a translation. This is not even a thing you can say, because there's so many different Indian cuisines, there's probably no standard work. But if there are good, let me rephrase it, if there are very good Indian cookbooks that are authentic, that people enjoy, I will take recommendations at this time. Okay. What else do we have? What else do we have? I've read the Meditations through at least twice now. It leaves a feeling that I'm not fully dissecting, understanding it. Do you have any tips on how to think through philosophy as you read it? It's difficult. It's difficult, but it is often a matter of multiple readings and watching my brilliant videos. No, I'm just kidding. But also read other works. So when it comes to Stoicism, I don't know if you've read some of the other works, the other Stoics. So Epictetus comes to mind, but also Seneca. Musonius Rufus, but I would especially say Epictetus is very accessible. Reading more different authors makes things come together more. And the problem is we simply do not have original sources in Stoicism and in many other Hellenistic philosophical schools that were textbooks, because a lot of that material was there, but it's lost, right? So you read texts that kind of assume that the reader already knows a little bit about it. I think the best textbook, the closest thing we have to a textbook on Stoicism, is the Discourses by Epictetus. There were 8 books, 4 of which were lost, so we only have books 1 through 4. But that is actual, the author claims, verbatim copies of his lectures. But even those are difficult because they're not as thematic as a modern day class would be. But it's better than nothing. And beyond that, there are good modern authors who wrote about Stoicism, which can give you more of a background. So John Sellars, for example, wrote a couple of books on Stoicism, very good. That's Sellars with Sellars, and Massimo Pigliucci, Pigliucci. Oh, pretty good. I was impressed. He wrote a great book called How to Be a Stoic, which is also very nice. And sometimes having a bit of that, which is more meant as this is the theoretical background, can make it easier to understand the original Stoics. And also don't forget that the Meditations were not meant to be published, right? That's one person talking to himself, doing philosophical exercises, and that makes it hard to read. And some parts of the Meditations, I think, are understood by no one, because that was Marcus Aurelius writing to himself. So nobody understands what he was trying to say. Some passages simply don't make sense. So it's not you. It is difficult. Read Epictetus. Start with the Enchiridion, and then read the, I want to say dissertations, the discourses, sorry. Dissertationes in Latin, diatribe in Greek, sorry. Read those, but start with Enchiridion. That is so down to earth, that may help you out of it. All right. What else do we have? I found that hair shampoo helps with getting ink off your hands or fingertips. Interesting. That I will try. Yeah, that's a good tip, Samar. Using an uncooked smallish potato is very good for preparing the nib. This is dip nibs, right? Because they that's very good suggestion. They don't write out of the box. There's often oil and such covering them, and then they will repel ink, and it's not pretty. I didn't know that when I started out, and I wish someone had told me. Yeah, sticking it, you can either suck on them, but I never know how good that is for your health with all kinds of weird metals. But just potato, boom, and that does work. That takes off that oil. Yeah, minute. Okay. Carefully trying to scroll. Which gold nib would you recommend for a fan of Japanese finds? Well, a Japanese find comes to mind. A Platinum 3776, I think, is a good point to start. I mean, they're not the world's biggest pens, but they are solid writers. What are my views on pens inspired by other pens? Yeah, I don't mind it, but some people have issues. Like, for example, I like the where is it? I like the Bologna Extra from Armando Simoni Club because it's bigger than a regular Bologna. But for some people, it's ridiculous. It's very heavy. It's very big. I like it, and I don't have issues with it. But I can see how some people would say, yeah, but it's not a Bologna because Omas is gone, etc. So, not getting into that simply because everyone can have opinions on that. At least this is made available. I don't mind it so much. But again, there's also ties in a little bit to the discussion of pen pricing that we had before. Would you say more brands manufacturing their own nibs instead of sourcing them from Bock and Jovo would be better for the pen world? Both Pelican and Santini have moved from sourcing to making their nibs. Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a whole different skill. I wouldn't say it's necessarily easy. And you also have to look at companies like, let's stick to Edison. I mean, I think the Edison Pen Company makes really nice pens. If they will now have to all of a sudden move to also making their own nibs, I don't know if that's a reasonable thing to expect. Nor am I suggesting that you are suggesting that. But I think it would be nice to see that. Because this is another thing that came up in my discussion with Joe last night, that at the end of the day, when you buy a new pen, you're buying Bock or Jovo. Like, aren't you, like 9 out of 10 times you're buying one of these two? So the nibs are always the same, right? They may have a little different imprint, but they're always the same medium, the same broad, the same. So I would like to see more variation, and I'm happy to see that some companies are doing that now. And I think what Santini is doing in that regard is very good and very useful because it just adds something. It adds something to the pen world. So I think it is a very, very good movement. I have hiccups now. I need more tea. So good. All right. Have I used a Faber-Castell Ambition? Faber-Castell. I need to see it because there's something about this. I just type in Faber-Castell and Google predicts that I want to type Ambition. Why that? I just said it. My webcam is listening to me. Okay. I just want to see it because I have used so many of these pens that sometimes I forget which is which. Okay, you can load this faster than you're doing now. Got to move on. I want to say yes, I've probably used it. Yeah. Oh, now everything's screwed up. Okay, here we go. Yes, I probably have used an Ambition. Yes, I have used an Ambition. It's weird. I thought that's what it was. I just wanted to check it. The section is weird. Like, it has a tiny section, so you're supposed to hold the barrel, but then there's also a little metal nub. It wasn't my favorite. It's a good writer. Faber-Castell. I have yet to be disappointed by a Faber-Castell nib, but that particular model was not my type of pen. This is personal, right? But I mean, you asked my opinion, so I'll give you my opinion. What else? I have seen your review, but wanted to know your opinion of the Armando Simoni Club Bologna with Magic Flex nib as an everyday writer. I like it as an everyday writer, but you have to realize, like, I'm looking at your name, but be aware of your hand size vis-a-vis this pen, because this is a big pen. This is big, okay? Here to there is 8 inches. I'm 8 inches. I always like to tell people that, but I'm talking about my hand. Anyway, it's a big pen, but it has a brass liner in it. So it's not just big, it's heavy. And if you can't handle that, for whatever reason, the size of your hands, whatever, I many people in my surround, wrist issues. Well, it may not be for you. I love it. I use it as an everyday writer. I have 0 issues with it. It's big, it's heavy. Fair warning. All right. Yes, my sound quality. It's funny that you should mention that, because I often get negative comments about my sound quality. I am looking into getting a microphone, but I actually just use the microphone on my camera. So I don't have a specific microphone that I use in addition to the camera. So I can't give suggestions. Sorry. What do you think of the modern Parker Centennial Dual Fold? Yeah, I like the old model better in looks, but to each his own, right? I just like it better. Oh, interesting. Indian cooking is a lot more complex, and most cooks cook by feel and not accurate measure. There's a lot to be said for that, you know? You cook with passion and not with fixed ways of doing things. For example, in Kerala, I don't know if I pronounce it correctly, I'm sorry, you might find a variation in biryani. Biryani is also God's gift to mankind, isn't it? Indian cuisine is so good. Sorry, every few kilometers. Yeah. Interesting. Yes, thank you. No, please do let me know recommendations for good cookbooks, because I really appreciate it. Now one biryani. Man. Anyway, have I used old, vintage, etc. Draftman pens? I have reviewed one at some point, but it's really not my cup of tea because I don't really know how to use them. So I reviewed it because it was requested to review it, but I really don't use those things. So I'm fledgling new to flight, right? I don't how to use, so it's kind of stupid for me to review it because I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know how to show it off properly. So I try to stay away from those things. In the words of the inimitable Clint Eastwood, man's got to know his limitations. So that's a limitation. All right. Yes, Aaron, send me a recommendation for a good cookbook. Thank you. Yes, more Indian cuisine. I recommend Punjabi, Mughlai tandoori food. Oh man, it's so good. I want Indian food so badly now. Damn. These videos are dangerous, man. Okay. They're really great pens for about $130, $250. I hate to admit it, but my Pilot Custom Heritage 912 music nib and Visconti Rembrandt fine nib write better than most of my Pelican and Mont Blanc nibs. Yeah, it can happen. But again, I say again, like I don't think we should be. I'm not saying you are, right? But I mean, we shouldn't be snobs about pens. This was $100, a little over $100. Enzo XS pocket pen. This is a limited edition titanium. It's not available. Well, they made another run of it. It's a simple, inexpensive pen, but I really like writing with this pen. It doesn't always have to be a pen that's a grand. You can have really good writing experiences with, indeed, $100 pen. And don't forget, there is such a thing as a Nibmeister. And these guys are professionals who can make nibs write beautifully. And sometimes people ask me this, is it worth it to send a $50 pen to a Nibmeister? Of course it is. You may end up spending another $50 on that pen, right? But it will write beautifully. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a really nice idea in my mind to do that. You end up with something that you really love. And it doesn't have to be $800, $1,000, $200. It really doesn't. You can have really good pens for really good prices. Again, like I said, Faber-Castell, Basic, Faber-Castell Loom, $30, maybe $40 pens, but they write superbly. And I have found many Faber-Castell steel nibs to outperform gold nibs of other brands that skip, that have hard starts, that are over polished. Faber-Castell is the way. Oh, there's some recommendations for Indian chefs online too. Thank you. Names noted. I'll check them out. Yeah, this is a good point. A follow up to that thing of pens inspired by, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you can only make so many different kinds of pens, right? I mean, it's a tube with a nib. You can be, you can do different things. You can. I like this, for example, this Scribo. I like the shape of it. It's different, right? It's different. But at the end of the day, it is a pen with a nib and a piston filler. So I mean, I don't. Violating intellectual property is a different matter, but Yeah, there's a lot of black pens with gold trims. Yeah, it's true, right? What can you do? Like, at the end of the day, it's all kind of similar, right? I like the Jinhao 51A is a modern version of the Parker. Yeah, that's true, and it's a fun pen. Again, intellectual property, that becomes a different story. But yeah, they write well, and you can get cute nibs for them, including food in nibs. Like, it's kind of fun. Kyle Parsons says, "Hey, Stephen." Hello, Kyle. Always nice to see you. Kyle is the gentleman who sent me the fine nib for my Cornet that I use religiously and have never taken off that pen since I put it on. Thank you again. Dangerous man. Do you know a good DIY pen flush formula for an accidentally dried out pen? Yes, I actually have one on my channel. Don't mix bleach and ammonia. Do not, because you end up with something that's toxic, and that's actually very bad for you to inhale. Don't do it. I have found water with a bit of ammonia, and you're looking at not much. 5%, 10% ammonia has been helpful to clean out pens. That's a very simple solution. See what I did there? Another thing, just a bit of dishwashing detergent, like a drop in a sample vial or whatever you use to that could also help. If you can take the nib and feed out, an ultrasonic cleaner, a sonicator, can really make a massive difference. But if you can't, I would try with those types of homemade flush solutions. What else do we have? Why have Cross Peerless 125 pens never attracted much praise in the fountain pen community? I reviewed one. I wasn't blown away by it. I got the Darth Vader one, and I did really love it. I think they're a bit underrated in writing. Sailor nibs write really, really well. I personally don't like the looks of the regular Peerless pens. I do really like the looks of the Darth Vader pen, because it's Darth Vader. They did a fun thing with it, and for me, the step down to the cap, which is quite big on the regular ones, doesn't look as big on this particular model. I love it. I have it inked up almost all the time, and I use it almost constantly. Beautiful writer, medium nib, Japanese medium, writes like a Western fine. Very nice. Yeah. Yeah, what about countries? Because in a lot of countries like the US, cursive is no longer a thing in schools. It's no longer part of the curriculum. What about the Netherlands? I don't know about now. When I was in the Netherlands, cursive was still a thing that we were taught, and I sucked at it, which is interesting now. But yeah, so I think it may still be part of the curriculum, but I'm not 100% sure. Is there a way to support you on Patreon or similar? Yes, there is. I have a Patreon account where you can... I don't do the thing with like a certain amount per month. I have it set up so that you can decide what you want to pay per video, and then you can cap it. So some people support me for $5 a month, $1 a video, but it capped at $5 a month, or capped at $2 a month. And on Patreon, I'm easy to find. I'm SBREBROWN, just like on YouTube, Instagram, and those kinds of things. So if you want to support me, by all means, you're very welcome to. It's always appreciated. And I'm very appreciative. I do want to point that out. I'm very appreciative of the people who support me on Patreon. I can honestly say I'm not in it for the money, and this is never something that will make me quit my day job. But I can also not deny that a lot of work goes into this. So if people want to support me, that's really appreciated. So that there are options, yeah. And Patreon has to me been a pretty solid platform where people can also easily stop the support. If the financial situation changes or whatever, you can very easily stop doing that, which I like, because I don't want anyone to be stuck being billed for something. You should probably review your chef knives. Interesting idea. May happen at some point. I'm not a knife expert, but I do like a nice kitchen knife. So yeah. Would you say the Armando Simoni Club is kind of the same size As Leonardo Momento Zero Grande? No, I would not say that. I can show you them side by side because I have them here. This is a Momento Zero Grande, and this is the Armando Simoni Club. So no, it's quite a bit bigger, and it's way heavier because this is all resin, acrylic resin. I won't say resin, and this has that brass liner, and even uncapped, there is a substantial difference in the size between those two pens. So it's much bigger, the ASC, and heavier. What else do we have? I would say we do this for about 10 more minutes. And it's been 2 hours. I think that's a nice moment to end. Can you recommend 2 to 3 nib meisters in the US? Yeah, there's many. Mike Masayama, Mike at Work, well, this is his website, was trained by Mr. Nagahara of Sailor. That man knows what he's doing. It's one of my favorites, but he has a lot of popularity and therefore long waiting times. There's the nib grinder. There is Independence. There is the nib smith, Dan Smith. There used to be Richard Binder, but he retired, right? You may see him at a pen show, but am I leaving anyone out? I feel like I am, but I would say that's a very good place to start. Those guys are all solid. Independence has a female nibmeister, which I also really like, because you heard it here first. You may have noticed fountain pens are a sausage fest. So I like that there are females in this hobby. And I really like that Independence has a female nib grinder. The same thing, there's Annabelle in the Netherlands, but you asked about the US in particular, so that's why I stick to that. The Italians are expanding their offerings in the sub $150 range. Visconti has the $90 Breeze, yes. Montegrappa has the $120 Armonica. Aurora has expanded. Any advice for them beyond the quality control? Yeah, quality control, man. Do it. Check your nibs. Make sure they're right. It seems like a pretty obvious thing, but it apparently is not. We appreciate it. Let me make an official statement. As a fountain pen community, as your friends, but also as your customers, we would appreciate it if all your nibs wrote. Now, there can be an occasional issue, but if it's a 50-50 scenario, then it becomes a little bit of an issue. Check the nibs. Okay. Why don't the German pen makers do much work on their aesthetic appeal of their pens? They usually make boring-looking pens. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's a matter of taste, right? Some people really like to say the Bauhaus style of Lamy. It's not my personal style either. Just a personal thing, because I like them a bit gaudier. I just do. I like the pretty more than the hyper functional industrial look. Although sometimes it's fun too. It's a choice, I guess. And it's a cultural thing. Like German engineering is precision engineering, and that's what you get. But you don't necessarily get something that's super fancy looking. The best way to clean a Pelikan M800? Well, of course, the obvious, draw up water, expel it. But don't forget that with the Pelikans, the nib units come out. So what I typically do is I unscrew the nib unit. Now, for the record, what I do when I unscrew a nib unit, this doesn't unscrew. Careful not to twist it out, because you can misalign the nib and the feed. You don't want that. So what I do is I put my finger like this. I put the nib in. I put my thumb firmly on the feed, and then I unscrew the pen. That's a trick I learned from Richard Binder on his website, and it makes a lot of sense to me because you tend to not misalign nib and feed. Then you can just flush out the barrel of the pen, and I typically use a syringe. I have one, like a dental syringe with a plastic curved needle, so you can't scratch anything. Fill up with water and just squeeze it through the back end of the nib, and that cleans it pretty well. And then you put it back in the same way. What is the smoothest nib I have ever used? Yeah, I really don't know. I've used so many, I don't think I can quantify that. I do really like the Sailor Cross Point was a very smooth nib. What are some pens similar to the Stipula Etruria Pelikan M800 Montblanc 164? 146, sorry. But in size, I don't know. Requires thought. No, I don't know. From the top of my head, I don't know. What type of videos do I do on Patreon? No, it's the same videos. It's the same videos. So it's just that, in a nutshell, what happens is every video I publish on YouTube, I then add on Patreon, and then people get charged. So they get charged for that type of video. So some videos I don't put on, they're like this. This is just me hanging out. I don't want to charge for that. But the pen reviews I do. So that's it. So it's not like Patreon. Some people, when they're on Patreon, they make exclusive content for Patreon too. I haven't done that. May at some point, but I like it to be more accessible. So it's more a matter of you can choose to do that support, but you don't get exclusive content. Sometimes I do giveaways of pens that are Patreon only, because don't forget, these are people who support me financially. So occasionally, if I have a pen to give away, it'll be given away to all those people who choose to do that level of support. And sometimes I do giveaways that are open to the public. I try to mix it up a bit, right? And keep things fair. Do you know a good source in Europe for different number 6 nibs? Yeah, goldnibs.com. Aren't they in Spain? There is a company in Spain. Yeah. What about Japanese versus German chef's knives? Yeah, that would be interesting. There would be some differences there. Even I know that. That would be an interesting discussion. How do you make everyday coffee? I do not drink coffee. It never grew on me. I can't do it. Too bitter. Have I tried the Moonman 800? 800? No, I don't think so. Have you seen Sarge's own line of pens made by Leonardo? Sarge has Leonardo pens. Okay, no, I didn't know that. We'll check it out. Have a chat with him. His own logo on the nib. Damn. Okay, I'll check it out. Having large hands, is an Acaia Piccolo usable unposted? Well, not really. It is the Piccolo. It is a small pen, right? It's like something like this, right? It's not big. I don't find that a comfortable pen to use posted, but again, 8 inches, and I have reviewed a Piccolo, so you can check it out and see it, what it looked like for you. I want to say I found it quite small. All right, we're almost there. What? My Quebecos are boring? No, your Quebecos are not boring. Don't worry about your Quebecos. As I said, to each his own. Oh, John Mottershaw. Yeah, another good recommendation for a nib meister. John Mottershaw, nibs.com. Yeah. Are there still bookshops in the Netherlands where you can buy fountain pen ink? Yeah, I have seen some. I wouldn't say every bookshop has fountain pen ink, but some of the larger ones still do. Yeah. Will I review the Pilot 845? Maybe. I'm not sure yet. Could happen. That custom Urushi also at some point probably needs to happen. What was the best thing to happen to me this week? That's a good question. I think I had different conversations online with friends, different friends. And all of those were highlights in their own regard. Especially now, it's important to try and keep up with those kinds of things, I think. Yeah. Right. So even online, you can connect with people. Give us some Monty Python. Oh, enjoy that. And now for something completely different. We're almost done, people. I have 30 seconds. So I'm going to say my farewell. There's a chance we will do this again next week. You seem to enjoy it. I enjoy it. So always fun. The Nib Doctor, one more lady Nib Meister. Oh, that's, yeah, true. That's a good point. Yeah. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. I had fun. I hope you had fun. We shall do this again sometime. All stay safe and hang in there. try to also look at the interesting sort of fun things in life, because they are still there, right? Right. All right. Next week, I'm thinking this may happen again, but I'll keep you posted. Keep an eye on my Instagram, because that's where I announce this. Having said this, thank you all for your questions, comments, suggestions, feedback, and complaints. No, there weren't any complaints, were there? No, there were no complaints. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll see you soon. Bye.